right? Acknowledging the miracles that happen around you, even if they are small, they bring more miracles, and a energy of gratefulness brings more things to be grateful about. So, yeah. So can we talk a little bit? Now, I saw a couple weeks ago a really, an interesting story about, Wendy Williams and her brother, Tommy. Now, Tommy got on social media and shared with all of us that Wendy had not attended their mother's funeral. Sometime in December, Wendy Williams had shared with her viewing audience that her mother had passed away sometime in October. So the news, though it was shared much later, Wendy kind of came on air and had a tearful reveal that her mother had passed away that October. Well, Tommy took to social media and in a video, basically stated that he was confused about his sister and confused about how she could have not been there for the final moments of their mom's life, or not life, but to basically her send-off. And if it's a sign of respect, this person who's always been there for you, why didn't you show up? Yeah. And, he talked about her ex-husband showing up. No word if he brought his alleged new mistress. Now, or not new mistress, but the mother of his newest child. Now, if you've been watching the Wendy Williams show lately, she has also been talking about her ex-husband in a very positive light as well, which is somewhat, I guess a little confusing. Now, Wendy Williams does have a movie premiering on Lifetime this Saturday. I believe it's called Wendy Williams, A Mess or something like that. I really haven't. Now, while I am a huge Wendy Williams fan, and I have been following Wendy since her early days on radio at 98.7 here in New York City, Wendy has always been very clear that she discusses the hot topics. She does not wish to be a hot topic. And so after her brother's social media reveal, Wendy then came on her show and in a flurry of firings, basically stated that she knew where her brother's secrets lie, and if he wanted to, maintain a relationship with her, he would need to keep it very adorable. Now, listen, one of the issues, first of all, how do you guys feel about not attending someone's funeral? Now, it tears me. I think I'm conflicted on many sides about something like that. I think people have the right to mourn the way that they see fit. However, I still feel like there is a ceremonial tradition that surrounds a funeral. And while you may not respect the ceremony and the tradition, if the person who has passed away respected that ceremony and tradition, I think it behooves you as a sign of respect to that person to respect the traditions that they value. Does that make sense? So while you may not, while you may not in your personal life respect funerals and think that they are necessary, I think that's good to know so that people who don't show up to your funeral don't feel bad. But I think that if, like, for instance, and I hate to, because we hate to talk about or even think about the morbidity of our parents, you know, and a shout out and love and light and a lot of prayer to Chad Ochocinco of Ochocinco One and me. His mom just passed away. So, you know, just wanting to surround him with a lot of love and light at this time. But, you know, I always have felt that while I understand not wanting to remember a person in a particular way or not wanting, you know, the legacy that lives on in your mind to be the funeral, I do think that as a sign of respect, you should respect the traditions and the values that the person who's passed has. And if that includes the sanctity and ceremonial traditions of a funeral, then I think you should attend. Now, I don't necessarily love people taking to social media to hash out their beefs. I've always had an issue with that. Why do people do that? Like, even when you throw shade on social media, like, if you and I have beef and the only way for us to communicate that beef is through social media, we don't have beef. We don't have beef. Because that must mean that you must not have my number, or I must not have your number. I must not have your address. You must not have my address. We can't seem to speak to each other in a way that is befitting of an actual relationship. So we're going to speak through social media at each other. I just find that to be really weird. I guess he felt like there was no other way, or maybe he couldn't contact her. Maybe she wasn't making herself available. I have no idea. But what I do know is I feel like, oh, yes, brownies for my brownies, honey. I do feel like it would have been more preferential for them to have the conversation with each other as opposed to at each other. But hopefully you guys are taking issues like this as a learning lesson and like seeing stuff like this. Like, no one wants to be addressed through social media, and no one wants to feel like that is the only way that they can speak to someone that they love, because that person is either unwilling to or cannot listen at this time. And, you know, that's also a really tough pill to swallow when you're dealing with someone who is not conscious. And that's different than being mindful, because obviously the person's not mindful. We're in this place, right? But when they're not conscious, meaning that they can't even actual reasoning is not a bedfellow to them. It's problematic. But the way that you tap into that is not by responding on their level. It is by giving it a moment, because time is a luxury that is not just afforded to the rich. And sometimes I feel like when we communicate with each other, we feel the need to react as opposed to respond. A reaction is a very, while deliberate, unconscious retort. You know what I mean? Whereas a response should be a little bit more conscious, should be a little bit more thought out. I think it is respectful of any relationship to say, you know what, I'm going to put space between the situation and what I have at the top of my mind. Because listen, as I say, everything fit to think is not fit to say. You know what I mean? Like everything, listen, let me tell you something, honey. Everything that comes to my mind, I do not say. I can't. Because I have to learn to temper my mind and more so to temper my mouth. Your tongue is a sword. Or your tongue is a life giver. And for you throat babies, please do not. Get your mind out the gutter. Okay? No, but truly, let's elevate for a minute. Your tongue is and the Bible says it, your tongue is a sword or it is a life giver. So that is why it is imperative that you put space between what you think and what you say. Now, I don't know the deal between Wendy and her brother. I don't know them on any personal level, but what I can say is, I recently heard Devin Franklin say that in life we have two things that we can prepare for in life. How we prepare for what might happen and how we respond to what just happened, right? So your life is what you are constantly preparing for, even what listening to the energy that I hope to dispel in this podcast is one that synchronizes with one of these two things, either preparing you for what might happen or how you respond to what just happened. Because what you have to know is the moment that something happens, that's God. And how tapped in, how conscious you are at any given moment shows your synchronicity with God. So how tapped in you are to any given moment, that is the difference between a reaction and a response. Because again, you can only tap into two things: preparing for what might happen or how you respond to what just happened. The moment when something's happening, that's showtime, baby. That's showtime. That's go time. That's the time that God shows up to see. Are you here? Are you present? Do you get what's happening? And am I with you? Are you synchronized with me? So you can prepare all day. You can go to school for 100 years. But when you're in that surgery, that's God. When it's time for you to respond to Brother Tommy, the preparation and how you just responded, it doesn't matter. The moment is what matters. And that's why you have to tap into consciousness. That's why you have to be present. And if that means in that moment that you need to provide yourself space to have a response that is befitting of the situation or one that causes you to rise above the muck, then you have to do that. That's part of your preparation. Okay, Lori Harvey and Michael B. Jordan. It gives stunt to me. Now, for all you girls who are like, oh, you just can't be happy for somebody who's in love, it makes sense to find people to be in love. Yes, it totally makes sense. I want to see them. Until I see them kiss on the mouth, I don't believe it. I'm sorry. I don't believe it. I don't know why. I don't believe it. Anyways, they've been flaunting their love. Now, see, that's my other problem. Right? Why can't y'all all be like Takeoff? Takeoff is still a part of the Migos. He still get his check. But when he not doing Migos, we don't know what he doing. And that's the way I like it. It really is. For the rest of you that want to stuff your business down our throat, but then want us to not have a reaction to it, turn your comments off. That's all I could say. Because outside of that, what are you even doing here? Why are you bothering us? Okay. So it seems as though our friend Trey Songz, who, if you guys recall a story about some party that was happening for a promoter somewhere in either, I believe it was Texas, in Houston. A promoter had a party a couple weeks ago, and Bow Wow came under fire for